Welcome, everyone, to Dr. Greenberg's Dental Studio. I'm here with Dr. Paul Goodman. Welcome.
Thanks for having me on here. Love sharing with dentists of all ages and stages, and I think it's awesome that you're doing this.
Thank you so much. So we have an awesome episode today. I'm going to be basically picking your brain about just a lot of what the dental profession entails, what you do, what the opportunities are like within the dental profession. I think that a lot of pre-dental students, a lot of dental residents and dental students get blindsided by like the one path of dentistry. And I think that you're a great example of what you could do within the dental profession as a dentist, a graduated dentist. So just to get started, can you give me just a little background about yourself, where you went to school, what your upbringing was like, etc.?
Well, I'm only here talking to you because my original dream failed of playing in the NBA. I have my NBA, my basketball, someone put a Nacho logo on it for me to remind me of my failed dreams. But you know what happens, Dan? When you grow to 5'9.5", you have to get new dreams, not NBA dreams. So growing up in New Jersey, I wanted to be a doctor, dentist, or lawyer. My dad was a dentist. He was an amazing dad. We practiced together for 11 years before he passed away, unfortunately, a few years ago. I work with my brother now. And I really wanted to get involved in a profession that was about helping people. One thing my dad did also say was that being a dentist allowed you to be your own boss, which he did like that. You know, if he wanted to take off to coach our sports, if he wanted to take off on Wednesdays, that does come, as we'll talk later, with its own risks and rewards, right? Being your own boss has rewards and risks. So I graduated from Penn Dental School in 2002. I did a multiple-year GPR at Albert Einstein. I loved the GPR experience. I got to place and restore a lot of implants. So that was the beginning of my dental career. I do want to share that I didn't love the class 2 fillings and even sometimes regular crown preps. I found them to be unpredictable. I didn't like that sometimes you would insert a crown, there'd be no contact. Sometimes you do a class 2, the marginal ridge would fall off. I really was drawn to implants because I felt they were like parts and pieces, like an erector set. I'm older than you, Dan. There's these things, before we had all these fun games, there's erector sets. Lincoln Logs, if anybody's over the age of 40 listening. So I was drawn to the predictability of dental implants. And then I also really found that one thing my dad had always told me, and he had a dental partner, was dentists don't always like each other. There's a lot of competition. Dental school sets up the dental student hunger games. So I wanted to be part of the solution to bring dentists together. Dental Nachos is part of what that is now. Early in my career, I would run study clubs. I would run fun events. I would bring in speakers. One of my mottos, Dan, is no one likes the dentist, so we might as well like each other. So I thought it was just crazy that dentists would compete and kind of create these insecurities amongst each other. In dental school, I think it could be done in such a different way. I see there's no reason for all of this crazy competition and this weird. I have a 4-year-old who lives in my house, so if her friends are over, Dan, and a bunch of 4-year-olds there, I said, who can eat the M&Ms the fastest? I'm gonna create competition, and they're not gonna like each other. And I just don't know why dental school does that to us. And I have to say, it makes us sometimes strange for the rest of our lives. So I think that we can kind of return to that person we were before dental school and still take in all the good parts of dental school, made great friends, learned how to be a dentist. Doesn't mean all the components of dental school are a problem. It just means I didn't like the Hunger Games portion of it.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. And I think that everyone, even in college or in dental school, goes through that period of time where they're like, you're my friend outside of here, but in the classroom, I want that higher grade. I want to get into that residency. And you always kind of play with that in your mind.
And I don't know if that's helpful in any way, shape, or form. I don't know if it's helpful in dental, in business. I just think that it creates isolation instead of collaboration. So I'm with you. And I think even things like you're doing here, just bringing these type of stories to life. I always say Dental Nacho's goal is to ABC to FLA, always be connecting to feel less alone. I think,
I
from
like
your
that.
podcast to event, feeling alone is a big problem as a dentist. I'll have to share that. You're a resident. I was a resident in a hospital. Doctors, if you notice, doctors don't complain about loneliness because they work with other doctors. They see other doctors. They go to lunch with other doctors. And dentists, a lot of times you can have an amazing team in private practice, but if you're the only dentist in that office, it can often feel very lonely.
That makes sense. And I hope you trademark that.
Thanks. I'll think about it.
I like that. So I see behind you, we have Dentist Job Connect, Dental Nachos. I know you touched on it a little and like where I guess that idea came from. Can you just elaborate a little bit more about exactly what you do and what your ultimate mission is with these two different companies,
Yeah,
or if
well,
they're
like
the
Bob,
same company?
sure, yeah. Bob Ross, we used to say happy accident a lot. So in 2017, dental Facebook groups were a thing. I have a lot of strong opinions.
Hmm.
Sometimes my parents would say, "You should be a lawyer, Paul," but they didn't say it in the nicest way. But I always try to be
And
respectful
you never
with
want to
my,
listen to them. You do the
yeah.
opposite of what you want to do.
I always believe dental nachos and what I do, it's about challenging ideas, not attacking people. I'll explain. On dental nachos, our Facebook group, if someone says, you did a PFM crown and you're out of touch and you're the worst dentist ever, no good. That's not okay, right? You did a
Hmm.
PFM crown. Are you aware that maybe zirconia is an opportunity for your patient that won't make it break as quickly? Just as an example, that's challenging
Hmm.
ideas. So, what Dental Nachos is, it's an online, in-person community dedicated to helping dentists, dental students, and teams do three things. Dan, increase success, decrease stress, and reduce the number of times they feel like crying inside a day, because that's where dentists have to keep their crying, and team members, right? You know, I mean, when you get into practice, you'll see your front desk team member will look across the counter at a human being and say, Millie, your patient portion for this crown is $900. And Millie will say, I don't have any money, Kate. And then Kate will see her get into a Mercedes and drive away, and she
Yeah.
will cry inside. So there's so many, it's a community to help dentists and teams feel less alone, learn about business, do CE, get together in person. But really, most of all, Dan, is to make new friends. I mean, one of the things the Dental Nachos Network has done, this is just a fun story from today. So the
Hmm.
person who found me this space here at 1500 Walnut is a real estate agent, and we may need a new space, a bigger space. So he's on a call with us today, and he said, Paul, I got to tell you and your team something. I was on the coast of Florida, and I was walking on the beach, and I was wearing my nacho t-shirt. This is a real estate agent, by the way, not a dentist.
Yeah.
And someone walked up and said, oh my gosh, I'm part of that group too. So
Wow.
to me, that is just awesome that people are meeting each other out there in the real world, bonding over dental nachos. So we help at all ages and stages. I always say, Dan, there's four big decisions dentists make: finding a job, buying a practice, hiring an associate, and selling a practice. And we
Mm.
really try to focus on good decisions, treatment planning your happiness at all ages and stages. So that is the Dental Nachos world. We have sponsors of the Facebook group. That's how we are able to do what we do. We sell in-person and online CE. We have networking events. We do transitions coaching. So that's Dental Nachos, that whole plate there. The name came from my awesome wife. She helped me come up with it. You know, I worked at a Mexican restaurant growing up. I love nachos. I think nachos have a lot of toppings. You know, I'm a dentist, I'm a
Mhm.
broker, I'm a speaker. And then nachos are meant to be shared. You know, nachos, you know, can get messy, right? There's a
They
comedian, this is
can.
not my joke, like Joe's, they say like you would fight your aunt for the last nacho chip on the plate, right? You know,
Yeah.
so like everybody's like taking the chips, like who takes that last chip? So that's the metaphor for the group. What happened about a year ago was Dentist Job Connect just became its own separate lane, its own separate
Hmm.
company of helping dentists, which what I believe is the biggest problem in dentistry: how to find a job and how to find a good associate.
Right.
You go to dental school, you go to residency, you can learn to place implants, but if after you get done with that, you can't find a good job, it's a failure. I don't like to use the
Hmm.
word failure. It's a missed opportunity. If you're a practice owner running around your office trying to like juggle five basketballs at once, and you say, I need some help out here in Pennington, New Jersey, which is where I work, how could you find that associate? I created Dentist Job Connect to be an affordable, amazing way for practice owners to connect with associates. And at the time of this podcast, it's totally free for job seekers like you to go on the platform and meet people.
Awesome. So what's your ultimate like goal with that? Is it to build a similar community that you have with Dental Nachos? Is it to build good associateships maybe for something for you in the future?
Really great question. I mean, it's to create responsible information in the space. So one of the things
Hmm.
we do at Dentist Job Connect is we give out free CE, free videos on what to ask on job interviews, why an
Hmm.
income guarantee is important, what a restrictive covenant looks like. I'm trying to enhance the game for both practice owners and associates. If you think about this story, Dan, practice owner can buy a practice when he or she's 30. They can work for 17 years, kind of in their own dental cave on their own dental island.
Hmm.
they might go to local CE and they might do great things, but they're not really interacting with the younger dentist in a meaningful way. And they go, I want to hire an associate. I got paid $400 a day. That's what I should pay my associate. I say things have changed with debt and how things work. So I'm really trying to bring two groups together to share in the joy. This is what dentistry is, Dan. I call it dentisting. Full contact arts and crafts on people that don't want to be there, right? You're 6 inches away from people that don't want to be there doing full contact arts and crafts. I try to make a lot of jokes and lighten the mood sometimes, but I also make jokes with meaning. So maybe you can use this for your listeners. So let's say you have a patient in the chair. We'll call her Millie. She's acting up. She does complaining. She doesn't want to open. You got to tell a 70-year-old, open like an alligator. You're questioning all your life decisions. Why am I doing this job? So I sometimes just stop and I say to Millie, hey, Millie, do you like to eat food? I like to eat food. And she goes, yes. I go, well, I'm just trying to help you do that. We're in this together. Can you dial it down a notch, right?
Yeah.
So I believe that Dentist Job Connect, I hope it to be like the care.com of our dental world. Care.com is an affordable platform for parents to get a subscription to meet babysitters. And then the babysitters, as far as I know, they don't pay to be on the platform. Right. So they connect them to take care of their most important asset, their children. I have children's most important asset. So babysitters to me are one of the most important parts of my life. They keep my kids safe. They let my wife and I do things. I have one right now while we're doing this podcast. My wife's out with her friends and the kids are on the babysitter. So it's not that I don't want to have a community feel to Dentist Job Connect because it'll have its own type of community. But people are coming into and onto the platform at specific reasons, right? My wife and I didn't need a babysitter before we had kids. 60-year-olds don't need a babysitter right now. It's really supposed to be focused, functional, fun, and affordable way to find an associate.
That's great. And last question with Dentist Job Connect. How have the results been so far with people that you've connected? And do you find that, one, the dentist is the party that favors the most, the associate or the potential associate favors the most, or do you find that it's like a mutually beneficial agreement between the two and that both of them feel like they benefit a lot from this?
Joe, love this question. And I like to share, it's okay to share success stories, right? So what we're doing is a really hard thing. Trying to connect licensed dentists across the country is a very hard thing, right? You got to be a dentist, you got a licensed dentist. So one of our D4s last year was from Midwestern Arizona School. He was willing to go anywhere in the country to find a job that both supported him financially and also supported him as a dentist. One of our Dentist Job Connect clients flew him out to a place in Illinois, met his team, and now they're working together there. He makes over $200,000 a year. Wow. He brought his baby and wife. So that's an amazing success story. I feel very good that those two people only met each other because I thought of Dentist Job Connect. They never would have met each other, right? Then on the other side, like our patients who don't like their crowns, sometimes at practice someone will be on there and say, Paul, I'm not getting enough candidates. Paul, I'm not meeting the right people. It's very location dependent. So I just did a little bit of it's not a study, a example. One job that pays over $200,000 a year got 400 views and 10 applicants, okay? Another job that pays over $200,000 a year got 350 views and 0 applicants. So we got 10 applicants, 0 applicants, similar views, similar salary. What do you think, Dan, is the difference between those jobs? 10 applicants, 0 applicants.
I would assume that it's location based.
Location is the answer, right? So one is in Monmouth County, New Jersey, one of the most popular places to live on earth. Do you want to be near the beach, New York City, Philadelphia, in the best school district where there's jobs for your spouse? Or do you want to be somewhere out in Texas with an amazing dentist team? I know these people own the practice. Someone would be lucky to work with these two people. But I totally get the reality. Dental Nachos has a just be nice concept, which means don't yell at people, don't say they're terrible dentists, but just be real, Dan, is this. It is a hard thing to ask someone who's 28 years old to move away from their friends and family to do one of the most stressful jobs on earth. And I totally get it 100%. So that job out there in the middle of Texas, so to speak, it's not the middle of Texas, is very different than one in Philadelphia or New Jersey. So what I think I'm bringing to life in a good but real conversation is this is what I would say to your generation, you guys applying to jobs. There are plenty of possible jobs for you to be employed. There's not as many practical ones for you.
Right.
Because I get on the phone, Dan, with I find in my experience running Dental Nachos that female dentists are much more willing to reach out for help. So I get a lot of awesome DMs from not awesome DMs, awful DMs from awesome young dentists. Hey, Paul, I follow you on Facebook, 17 lines. Is this normal? And I go, none of it's normal. Quit that job. They're asking you to do unethical things. Quit. So sometimes I just say, call me on my personal cell phone, right? I do charge people for coaching, and I do have CAE, but sometimes I just want to be like, hey, this is so messed up. I want to talk to you. Now, it's not only female dentists, but I would say male dentists, you should reach out for help too. But I'm talking to this dentist, and I kindly annoy everybody, Dan, right? I'm an equal opportunity annoyer. So I say, okay, you hate this job. How many jobs do you apply to? They're like, 2. I'm like, why didn't you apply to 15? When did you start looking? 2 months before dental school ended. I go, you've worked your whole life to be a dentist.
For this.
Why would you put little care into this? And they go, you're right, Paul. And then I say to them, just to explain the reality. I use this phrase, you can tell you, it's an observation, not a judgment. It's an observation, not a judgment. I say, okay, I have a job for you. It pays $200,000 a year. It's a private practice with mentorship. They really want an associate. You can work 4 days a week and be supported. They go, Paul, I want that job. It's in Erie, Pennsylvania. Paul, I don't want that job. So I'm a 45-year-old who, if I want to try to buy a house in Philadelphia right now, the housing market probably has very high-priced houses, right? And maybe someone in the 1980s could get it for a better deal. The reality of what is happening to younger dentists is there are many open jobs in dentistry. They just might not be where you're looking to live. And I say this in the kindest, most genuine, kindly annoying way.
I like how what you provide is almost a reality check of this is exactly what's out there, and this is what's realistic in your area. Figure out what you want within a job. If you're looking for a high-paying salary, good benefits, all the bells and whistles, move to Texas. But if you want a realistic job that's like maybe a little bit underwhelming, but in a nice area with nice people, etc., look at that area. Those jobs might be harder to get. So I think that's a great service that you're providing to a lot of these people. That's great. So what motivates you to continue doing this? Like, obviously you provide a lot of free resources. You got on this podcast with me free of charge, which is amazing. You talk to people on the phone, basically sometimes for free. Sometimes you charge a little money, but you're very open to that. You run these Facebook groups. You are a practice owner, right? So what motivates you to do all of these things? And you have a family. So where do you find the time?
Yeah, I mean, I love this question. And the things that you enjoy doing in life, the more you get to do them, the better your life is. But you still do need to make money to support your family, and it's a balancing act. But I'll use this company example. One of my favorite companies is Canva. It's a female-led company. She's from Australia. It's valued at billions of dollars, okay? She started out wanting to make people's yearbooks better. And she was I don't know if she was a graphic designer. I think she's a graphic designer. But what she did was she said, hey, this is Canva. You can use it to make a flyer for ASDA for free. You can use it to make a flyer for your 15th birthday party for free. Dental Nachos, when you're a young company, you can use it for free up to a certain point. And then once you start using my Canva thing, you have to start paying to it to get to another level. I believe it's so genuine to create a company based on the freemium model, because if I say, hey, Dan, you and your listeners can watch 30 days of C for free by mentioning Dan Greenberg, I'll give you a 30-day pass. I do this in a totally altruistic way, but also it has a core of selfishness so that I can keep growing. Gary Vee is one of my favorite people. He said everybody's balancing act is between altruism and selfishness. Most people are like 90% selfish, 10% altruistic. The best you could be is like 51% selfish, 49% altruistic. Because if you're too altruistic, you won't have a home, you won't have any money. So what I do is say, hey, you want to watch one free course from Nachos and it helps you with a class 2? Awesome. My hope is you keep consuming it, you become a raving fan, but you get to decide what you want to consume. So that's one angle to the why I do this. The other angle is I live in Philadelphia. I know you're in the New York area. There's so
Yep.
many great free parks, right? Rittenhouse Square Park. You can go into a park, you can sit there and have coffee. I walk my dog there, I meet friends. I pay $0 to go into this park, right? Zero. But there's sponsors of that park around on the weekends. They have farmers markets where they charge people to sell you flowers, beer, pies. So my Facebook group and my whole world is set up with sponsors. I have technology sponsors, banking sponsors, supply sponsors. So people can be inside of this park, learning, having fun, laughing. And then my hope is they support our sponsors for 2 reasons. One, they're great resources to do better. And 2, if you support the sponsors of the park can do better stuff. So that is my why for doing it. How I balance it all, I don't try to judge myself too much. I'm the type of person who switches gears easily. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you got to switch gears easily. I mean, last year when my daughter was 15-minute walk for her private school, I would walk at 3 o'clock, pick her up, and I come back and do a Zoom at 4 o'clock. It's not easy to do. Now she's at a public school closer, but
Nice.
I'm able to switch gears quickly from work to no work to family to friends. But being around entrepreneurs, especially like me, is like being around a friendly tornado. It's not always easy to be around us. I have a great wife. She puts up with me. She also helps us run our marketing department. So at the current time, I'm balancing all of it like a bunch of basketballs. But am I going to be doing this exact same thing 10 years from now? I don't know. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. Maybe Dental Nachos has been grown and someone else will be running it. Maybe it will stay this level. I don't really. It's interesting. I plan, like a treatment plan for stuff that I think is cool. But I don't judge myself if I don't get there in a time frame or if it gets there or not. I just enjoy it.
Yeah. It's the process that's the important thing.
Yeah.
The end goal, like, it's nice to think about that, but you have to enjoy the process, because if you don't, then you're going to hate your life.
If anybody listens to this moment in this podcast, dental school is like the Hunger Games, and I hope to make it more like the Infinite Game. The Infinite Game is by Simon Sinek, and he was on Guy Raz's podcast, How I Built This. And I am not a gamer, right? So I don't really know the gamer world, so I'm probably not going to totally explain it right. But basically, people who are gamers and do this, they just want to keep playing the game against each other, right? Sometimes Dan wins, sometimes Paul wins, but they're friendly rivals, right? That is what I love. I would love for dentistry to create this world of friendly rivals where people inspire each other to do better, but don't make people feel less than if they don't do as well as them, or their crown prep's not as good, or their business isn't as good.
Right. That's great. And you always see this in professional sports as well. Like, 2 guys grew up playing high school ball together, and then now they're on opposite teams in the NBA, or they grew up playing. They were on the same college football team. Now they're on opposite sides on bigger platform, the NFL. And then you see them go at it during the game, and then after they come together, and they're like, great game, right?
Totally.
And friendly competition is always healthy.
Yeah, I mean, because you can learn. I used to play a lot of golf growing up, and I still follow golf. Golf is amazing. Those guys give each other tips after the round. Like, they will literally be playing against somebody and say, oh, your putting stroke was messed up. Let me help you. Because they just want the game to be played at the highest level possible. That's what we should want about dentistry. Let's get it played at the highest level possible. And then, a Gary Vee thing too, and it's very important to grow your business, whatever you're doing. Making more money helps you help more people, right? Making more money, you can pay your team more. You can buy better supplies. You can do things. So money is important. But if it becomes overly important, it can lead to unhappiness in the entrepreneur or practice owner. Because he talks about, he knew somebody who had a company that did $3 million and was happy. Now it does $10 million and they're miserable. So just making sure the path to growth you're on is one that also corresponds with your happiness.
Right. No, and that's a great lesson, I think, for all the listeners to take out of this. You have to determine what your own happiness is. You can't just look at other people and see what they're doing and want to pursue that for yourself. You have to determine what it is for you that makes you, go to the next level and be happy and go to sleep at night and not freak out. All of those.
For sure.
All right. So before I want, before I pick your brain on just the dental profession, because I think a lot of people have, questions about where maybe the profession is going. I want to ask you one more thing about Dental Nachos. So what do you think your key success were with growing this company? Obviously, you started out, and it's your little baby, and then it matures into its adolescent stage. What stage are you at, and what have you learned your successes to be, and what were your learned mistakes along the
I
way?
love it. Well, some of the things I did, and I realized after listening to a lot of Gary Vee were the right things, was in the early days, I would contribute to Facebook groups with value in a consistent and kind way without an agenda, right? So I would go on other groups and someone say, I work with a dual rep broker, and I'd say, that's a big problem because of this. And I didn't say, buy my course or work with me. So
Right.
delivering value without an agenda. So one way a dentist could do that, if you're working a town and there's a Facebook group, contribute on the post all over the place. When someone asks for the best pizza place, say it's Vito's Pizza in Pennington, New Jersey, right? So one thing I did was I gave value without an agenda initially. I mean, I still do it now, but that was my initial
Hmm.
start to this, right? I didn't know where this would go. Some of the drop nachos I made mistakes were I would sometimes be moved from passionate to obsessed with interacting with people online, and sometimes it would get into friction or fighting. And now I'm much, a few years later, I kind of back away and say, hey, that's your idea. You live with that idea. Sometimes Gary Vee has a phrase, you can't sell to the unsellable. So when you're a dentist, Dan, you're gonna be looking at a patient who needs an implant and would benefit from an implant, and they're just dug in. Don't keep trying to go after them. Say, hey, Mrs. Smith, if you don't get this implant, your teeth can shift, lose bone, but you tell me when you're ready. So occasionally I would spend hours and hours kind of they weren't really fights. They were long Facebook interactions that would
Hmm.
drain me of energy. Be honest, sometimes I would not spend as much time with my family. So that is some things that are hard to do because, like, I don't know, if you play pickup basketball all the time, sometimes you stay at the gym for like 6 hours, right? When is
Yeah.
enough is enough. It's hard. I mean, what happens with our phones is I pick up my phone here, it holds the keys to everything, right? I'm looking at videos from my daughter in school. I'm reading ESPN. I'm interacting on Facebook. So the the relationship you have with your phone is one that needs to be managed carefully. And I will share. Sometimes I have become. What's the difference between passion and obsession, right? Like, is Tiger Woods passionate about golf or is he obsessed with golf, right? Is
Right.
LeBron James passionate about basketball or obsessed with basketball? I mean, in the
Hmm.
story, I'm not LeBron James. What I'm saying is I didn't always manage my time on social media initially as well as I do now.
Right. Yeah, and I have a similar issue, I think, because I started the pre-dental consultants, and we help students get into dental school. That's the goal of what we do. And I have, similar to you, a lot of people reach out to me on Instagram, on Facebook. We have a Facebook group. And I'm on my phone all the time answering people. And it's like, at what point during the night do I put my phone down and say, okay, I'm going to deal with that tomorrow? And, a similar thing. I have a different saying. You can't rationalize with the irrational, right? Like
Yeah.
something that, and I might be the irrational one, right? And the other person might be the rational one. You don't know which side you're on. But from my point of view, I'm the rational, they're the irrational. And the more that you take your effort and try to rationalize with them, the more you're going to drain yourself. So I see that all
Oh,
the
for sure.
time on Instagram with people writing to me about their DAT scores, whether or not they should retake it, the fact that they're taking classes pass fail when they really shouldn't be, withdrawing from classes and things like that. And then, you know, what I've also realized is you can never make everyone happy in the world. With whatever you say, you always will make someone unhappy. So from my experience, for instance, like I see people, going to community college, that might have a more difficult time getting into dental school. Could it be possible? Absolutely. And on some posts, I'll write, I really think that you should get a 4-year degree before going to dental school. Well, you need it, but take classes at a 4-year college before going into dental school. Then you always get backlash. Hey, I did it at a community college and I took all these classes at a community college. I got in. Look at that. So I guess in that moment, I take a step back and I'm like, okay, maybe like I need to revisit this. Like maybe I need to revisit the way that I say things. And I think a lot of that applies within the dental office also. It's just a matter of how you talk to patients. Maybe the outcome might be the exact same, but the response from your patient could be way different in that it depends how you say, what you're trying to convey to that patient. So,
It's an awesome point. I mean, also, think there's a restaurant that your friends like that you don't like, and they love it, and you're like, that place isn't so good, and they're like, what's wrong with you, Dan? We all like it, and you're both
mhm,
right. That's how you taste test it. And I'm 45. It took me a long time to do this. I don't think I would have been able to do this at 28, 30. I mean, there's a tremendous amount. I mean, what inspires me is all the great feedback I get. And what inspires me is I'm at the Great New York meeting and people run up and say, you got me through dental school. You keep it real.
amazing.
I have older dentists say, oh, I, wish I had someone like you. But then I also have people who are the online haters. You baby people, you give in to people, your thing's cheesy, it's dumb, the words you make up. And to them, they're both right, right? But it takes an
Mhm.
elevated 40-year-old to deal with that. And I give you credit for what you do because it's not easy. I think it's really unfair when people go, this really bothers me, when they go, you put yourself out there, you deserve that. No, you don't. It doesn't matter if you put
Yeah.
yourself out there, right? Like you still deserve to be treated with respect. People can challenge your ideas, but I've gotten like incredibly hateful, vicious things from people that I'm able to deal with at the age of 45. And it wasn't always easy to deal with in the beginning and say, hey, that person's disturbed or they have a problem. But I give you credit for being able to manage that at such a young age.
Yeah, thank you. And the way that I also look at it is you put out content, you put out free CE, people who are going to, maybe you baby people, who knows? But the people who want to be babied or the people who want to look at the content that you're putting out will look at it. The people who don't won't. So ultimately, like your target market, the people that you're supposed to attract will be there at the end of the day.
Oh, of
That's
course.
the
And
way I
also,
look at it.
that we all have this, right? So Gary Vee's talked about this with Tom Brady because he's not a big Tom Brady fan, but he's
Yeah.
like, I've never really met Tom Brady. Maybe he has now. He's like, that's totally on me. He's like, Tom Brady's never done anything to me. He goes, that's my own messed up Jets fan brain. So I always say to Dennis, I actually say this, and Gary Vee, I go, Facebook is free, right? Facebook is free. Whether you
Yeah.
think Facebook is the most evil corporation in the history of corporations, whether you think they are doing awesome work, right? It is totally free. We've agreed, right? It's free.
Yeah.
Dental Nachos inside of Facebook is also free. How can you be that mad about something that's free that you don't have to interact with?
Right.
And I
Yeah.
text that to people.
All you got to do is minimize the screen and then gone, poof.
Yeah. So
Amazing.
it's, I
Amazing.
mean, I think we're going through, social media interaction is still in its infancy. Hopefully we'll figure it out as human beings, like speed limits on a road or
Exactly.
safety mechanisms. But I think we are still living through a pretty wild time.
Exactly. All right. So I'm going to move on to just
Sure.
dentistry as a whole because I'm in my residency year, looking out into the real world next. So where do you see the future of dentistry going? Obviously, now there's a lot of digital technology. I know you said you place a lot of implants. Everything you could do everything guided now. A lot of cool technology in the space. And what do you think new dentists should basically be prepared for?
I mean, I think people have to. I actually did a really good 8-minute podcast on this. I'll text you afterwards.
Okay.
I was taking my daughters to Cinderella with my wife. So, is the ending to dentisting Cinderella going to be happy? I don't know, right? And I think we have to be incredibly uncomfortable with not knowing. To deepen this context, dentistry, awesome. Scanners, clear aligners, guided surgery, painless dentistry, fantastic. Life of dentist, frustrated. My dad lived to age 68, and he was a dentist for almost 40 years. And he was such a great guy. At the end of his life and career, he would say to my brother and I, listen, being a dentist was always tough. Your team was tough. Patients were annoying. They didn't open. He goes, it has become very difficult to run a dental business. Insurances are paying you less, right? The
Hmm.
debt that surrounds dentistry with dental students creates an emotional and financial challenge. And DSOs, and I work with DSOs, they are an entire thing. In New York City, Dan, if you did your residency when I did, there would not be as many CVS's and Dwayne Reed's out. There would be a lot more smaller stores.
Right.
But in New York City, a lot of DSOs have come and bought up all the stores, right? So right now, DSOs are looking to consolidate, and they say there's a market penetration of 10 to 15%. I think it could be higher. But I just got a text prior to this podcast from a 53-year-old practice owner that's going to get 150% collections for his practice. So Dan, if you were 57 and you had a $2 million practice and you could sell it to a DSO for $3 million or a young Dan for $1.7 million, who are you going to sell it to?
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It's a lot of capital coming into the space. I think that, I was actually talking with one of my buddies who started his own company, and the company Dandy.
Yeah, they're one of our sponsors. I know Dandy.
Dandy Labs, yeah. So he actually went to college with one of the founders, and did not go to dental school, has no dental background, just found an opportunity within the space. They saw an opportunity to make money. They saw some limitations in the past that they wanted to implement, and I think when they started it originally, it was a little different of a model for them, but they're coming in with, venture capital firms backing them, private equity, and they're creating this environment that, one, I think that what they're doing now is just helping dentists as a whole become more digital. But then it also limits some opportunity for dentists. Yeah, or I like to say this, the expectations for dentists become a lot higher, right? And then maybe that's why our job gets a little harder, because you can go down the road and have root canal. You can go to a DSO and have a root canal done in this amount of time because they need to see this many patients. Whereas you go to a different practice and it might be a little different of an experience. So I forgot where I was going with this, but
the direction of dentistry. So just to be clear, and if you're a podcaster, I do a lot of speaking. One of the best pieces of speaking advice is How to Speak by Patrick Winston. It has 13 million YouTube views. It was an MIT professor, passed away a few years ago. So he says, build a fence around your idea, circle around a subject. It's phenomenal. All of your listeners listen to it. I speak to 600 dentists, 60 dentists. I listen to it before big speeches. So clearly I'm saying dentistry is awesome. Technology, implants is awesome. The life of a dentist has become more frustrating. It's harder to make money. There's challenges with running a business. I mean, I'm 45, and the number of vendors that I pay each year, insurances, cybersecurity, IT, it's 3 times as many as my dad did when he was 45. Dentistry was they just had a little book where they wrote appointments in. I have to worry about my office being hacked, which it has been. I have to worry about HIPAA problems. So one of the things that's happening is the responsibilities of a dental practice owner to be able to do the dentistry have become very stressful. And it doesn't mean it's not worth it to own a practice. It just means to understand you. I do believe that sometimes a DSO or group practice, I'm a group practice, I have associates. I don't know if they ever want to be owners. I hope they work with us for a long time. Owning your own dental practice may not be the path for as many dentists as it was in the past, due to both market forces and the morale parts of owning a practice. So that's one of the things that I think we should think about. I think that dentists have to get together face-to-face more often, go to in-person CE, talk with each other, collaborate. I mean, I had a webinar today. Dan, why did dental insurances wrote dentists a letter saying, we're going to pay you 16% less? If I told everyone who worked for me, I'm going to pay you 16% less, how many people do you think would still want to work for me?
Yeah, it's crazy.
But dentists keep taking the plans.
Right.
I was one of them. It happened to me in 2017. Right now, I'm fully out of network with our 2 practices. I've, a specialist and associates. That's a hard road too. But literally, one of the companies said to me, hey, Paul, you know how we paid you $600,000 last year? That was about the amount. We're going to pay you $490 next year. You cool with it? And I go, yeah, I'm cool with it, because I was afraid. I was mad. So I think that this is who deserves the responsibility for where dentistry is right now, in my opinion. Dental school. Dental school not talking about business, communication, and the skills you need, like dribbling, passing, to survive, has caused big problems. And people can say, well, they don't have time, find the time. Because memorizing the Krebs cycle has helped me 0 times. Knowing how dental insurance worked would have helped me a lot of times. So I think that the future of dentistry is going to be dependent on dentists paying attention to what really matters to the profession, not just what dental school kind of teaches. Like, oh, treat people fine, Dan, you'll be fine. That's the worst advice I ever heard, right? Oh, Dan, go out there and be nice to your patients, they'll be fine. No, it won't. What happens when Spoiled Guac PPO wants to pay you 50% of your crown fee? How do you make decisions then, right? What happens when 3 of your team members quit in one day and you don't have anyone to assist anyone, right? Mm-hmm. So it's dental school isn't there to teach all of that, Dan. It's just to bring awareness to what I call your dental core: mind skills, hand skills, word skills, and heart skills. And they need to do a job of that for us to get better.
Yeah. How'd you dig yourself out of that hole to get to where you're out of network?
I made a morale-based decision. First of all, I did a lot of years in network, right? So I didn't just wake up one day and say, hey, I marketed more. We do a lot of implants. I took a risk. During the pandemic, we didn't have all the chair time we used to have before. So I said now, and there's a lot of challenges with being out of network. I think one of the things that you asked was, how do you deal with this? See, I did a multiple-year GPR, right? So I didn't go right into practice, even though I had a dad. So I feel like I put in time learning these skills at a fairly low pay rate, right? Mm-hmm. I think, as frustrating as this may sound to a dentist who spent $600,000 on CE, ask if I did a GPR now, like you, my first 3 years out of school, ask me how much I would spend each year on CE. You could ask
how much. Can I guess?
You could guess, yeah.
Yeah. So I want to say, 10,000. 10 to
yeah, I'd say 10 to 15,000 every year, no matter what.
Regardless, if you want to learn new skills.
If you want to develop to be the dentist that makes you not only feel good, function well, and I know you went to dental school, but you spent $600,000 on a big CE course where I don't know how good it was, and now you're in the world, and yes, I know it's tough, and I know you don't have money, but maybe you need to figure out some way to get the skills that are relevant to survival and thrival. And it might not be fair, but it's needed. So whether it's going to things like Spear, whether it's finding hands-on courses for extraction, whether it's going to local CE, a combination of those, I would say I am going to spend $10,000 to $15,000 a year. And I tell my residents this, and I think they don't do that, and then they struggle, and I get it. But somehow developing your core early in your career needs to be done if you want to have good decades after that.
That makes sense. Do you find that a lot of what you've learned, obviously you run a lot of CE. Is that just, first of all, do you run that? And then second, do you find that a lot of what you've learned, like in your GPRs, have correlated to what your practice eventually became? Or did you find that you needed to reach out to like more people, do like those big CE courses that you were talking about?
It's a combination. My brother did a 1-year GPR. I did a multiple year one. So I'll use him a little bit more as an example. So focusing on being a really good restorative dentist is important, right? Even if you know how to do implants, even if you know how to do extractions and endo. And I think that focusing on CE that helps you with diagnosis, treatment planning, thinking through cases, figuring out how to do comprehensive restorative care is key. Spear and Coyce are parts of that. The CE that I run, a lot of it's online, some of it's in person. It's really to get people initially started in the right direction, like my first implant placement, my first sleep apnea course. We did things on patient communication. I have a whole team of awesome dentists that are friends that teach on the platform. People can go to Nacho On Demand C and watch digital dentistry, endo, extractions, patient communication. But you know what's crazy, Dan? I did a poll on Dental Nachos. I said, if you could go out your first couple of years and work more in your crown prep skills or your communication skills, all the dentists pick you should do communication. And then I go, what courses do you take on communication? They go, I take none courses. I go, none courses are the one thing. So learning about the business and communication and connecting with patients. The cool part about that is, Dan, words are free. You don't need a CBCT to say other words. So it's a hybrid of all of that. Your GPR gets you set in a great direction for surgical care many times, and it's great to know how to do extractions, bone grafting, and implants. But it's just a constant evolution of what you want to offer to patients and not trying to be too much to everyone. I thought I was going to be the super GP. I thought I was going to do endo. I thought I was going to do crown lengthening. Did this GPR. It's impossible to do that as a general dentist in the real world. You got to focus on a few things that you do well.
Right. And then just exploit that and learn it even better and become more efficient.
Yeah, and refer the rest to other people.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we're going to switch gears for the final question.
Sure.
I'm sure we can make an entire podcast episode on it, but I want you to just keep it nice, short, and sweet. Where do you see the future of general dentistry and with regards to specialization? Because obviously, this concept of the super GP is now out there. A lot of people want it. How realistic is that in the real world? And obviously, there's always going to be a way for the specialist, but where do you stand on all that?
Really good question. I'll keep it succinct, but hopefully valuable to your audience. Mm-hmm. The general dentists that I know that seem to be the happiest, financially secure, lead the best teams, really focus on one of two things. They either really focus, like my friend Dr. Todd Fleischman, please check out Center City Philly Dentist on Instagram. He's one of the best dentists and people I know. He has done all the Cois, all the Spear, and he does comprehensive restorative dentistry. He doesn't place implants, he doesn't do endo, but he has an amazing office practice where he will do 10 veneers on people, 20 crowns on people, constantly working with specialists to do implants. So it's either tremendous focus on comprehensive restorative care or some type of super implant GP, because implants cross into a lot of boundaries. And if you get the right training, not the wrong training, the right training, where you can do sinus lifts, bone grafting, soft tissue grafting, you can really be successful. What I will share, Dan, though, is that path is pretty much like becoming a specialist, like a periodontist or an oral surgeon. You just don't do it inside of a program like that. I also think, just so for our listeners, being a specialist is awesome. I mean, if you want me to be honest with someone, I sell practices, I do Job Connect, I talk to dentists, people send me DMs, people cry, people say things are rough. Specialists tend to be happier than general dentists, and here's why. They do fewer procedures and make more money doing those procedures. They do fewer procedures and make more money doing those procedures. Because when you have a small, narrow thing of what you do, you only have to troubleshoot endo. You only have to troubleshoot perio. They will all tell you being a general dentist is very, very difficult. So get the right training because you have to troubleshoot so many different. I mean, when's the last time an oral surgeon had a problem with the class 2, Dan? Trick question. Right. When's the last time an endodontist had to deal with a denture complaint? I mean, I work with specialists, and sometimes I walk up and I see my periodontist and endodontist. I go, "Oh, this overdenture doesn't fit right. You want to help me?" They're like, "God, no, I don't want to help you with that." Right?
What's an overdenture?
Yeah, so I think focusing on what you do well leads to the most happiness as a dental professional.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Yeah.
I know that I've listened to you on a bunch of different podcasts, so you've always been someone that I really take a lot of what you say to heart, because I think that you have a lot of knowledge in the profession. I think you are connected to a lot of different people, and you have a lot of experience to offer. And I think it's an amazing thing what you're doing with Dental Nachos, Dentist Job Connect. I think that you should continue doing it and continue, making a lot of people, have these resources available to them. And I think that, within the grand scope of the dental profession, we do all have to be one. And I think that being one, helps each other just become better at the end of the day. So I appreciate that.
You're doing great things. I'm only doing this till I make it in the senior NBA. So when they're at the senior NBA.
Yeah, we got to ball sometime.
Yeah. Thanks, Dan.
5'9". All right. And if you want to, I could drop your tag on Instagram. If anyone wants to maybe email you, I know that you're pretty open about that. CE courses, things like that. Feel free.
Just go to dentalnachos.com. Dentalnachos.com will lead you to everything Nachos, Job Connect, reaching out to me. I designed it like an ESPN of websites. You can go on there, you can learn, you can find out how to contact me. So that's the easiest way is dentalnachos.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure.